On this Saturday night, disturbing new details emerge from Iran's deadly crackdown on protests. The harrowing stories of one Iranian who lived through it.
I saw small bags and I find that, oh my God, children.
As the calls to bring down the regime persist in Canada and around the world. Prime Minister Mark Carney jets to the Middle East, what he's hoping to get out of Qatar after scoring a major deal with China. Plus, healthcare hurdles, what's driving more Canadians to look for treatment outside of the country. And one step closer to an historic lunar mission.
I think others are going to join us in staring at the moon a lot more.
A new look at the spacecraft that will carry a Canadian astronaut around the moon.
Global National, reporting tonight. Nitu Karcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. After weeks of defiant protests across Iran calling for the fall of the Islamic Republic, the deadly toll from the regime's merciless crackdown is becoming known. Today, Iran's supreme leader acknowledged thousands were killed during the demonstrations. But rather than blame Iran's security forces, Ayatollah Khamenei blames what he calls Iranian seditionists and U.S. President Donald Trump for sparking the violence and causing the mass casualties. He called Trump a criminal, stoking concerns for what's next. Questions remain about what happened on the ground after authorities cut off internet and communications across the country. Disturbing accounts are emerging from an Iranian who managed to escape the bloodshed. Redmond Shannon spoke with him and has our top story tonight, and a warning: the details are graphic.
This is what faced thousands of people in Iran earlier this month, a scene of chaos at morgues. Global News spoke to one such witness. His name is Kirash. He has since left Iran.
I saw 2 layers of people, died people in body bags, in zipper, in black zippers. And some part there were 3 layers.
One human rights group says it has verified more than 3,000 deaths. Other estimates are much higher. Kirash visited Tehran's largest cemetery after a family friend was killed in a protest.
Like 2,000 in each warehouse. And I saw small bags, and I find that, oh my God, many children were there under these dead bodies. I saw a mother who she was shaking, and she laid on a body, and she was shouting that this is my boy.
Kirash joined a protest that evening, and at one point he felt someone brush past his left side.
I heard tap, 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 and suddenly I saw 3 people collapsed. He or she was shooting us in the leg and in the neck with silent guns. If he or she was left-handed, I couldn't talk with you right now.
What's your response to the Ayatollah's assertion that the protesters are to blame for the deaths, egged on by the US and Israel?
This is the same thing that every time he comes out with. I saw how they're killing our own people, our family. My family could be dead.
With the internet blocked, Kirash was approached by families gathered at the airport when he flew out.
I received like 50 messages from the people to tell the children outside of Iran that their family, they're safe.
Kirash says he finds it hard to sleep now, but that he feels compelled to speak out despite the dangers.
This is my duty. It is hard, but it is not harder than being killed.
Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
The regime's deadly crackdown appears to have broadly quelled those defiant demonstrations across Iran. There have been no signs of protests for days now in Tehran, heightening fears the movement has lost momentum. But solidarity protests and condemnation in countries around the world, including here in Canada, have not. Lexi Benedict reports.
A large sea of flags and posters could be seen waving high in the streets of Richmond Hill. For the second week in a row, Iranian Canadians are here showing solidarity with their loved ones back home.
Please help these people! all. These people are in the street. We are in the street all over the world just to say something. We need regime change right now.
According to the U.S.-based human rights activist news agency, more than 3,000 protesters have been killed. But Iranian Canadians say the fight for regime change is far from over.
This has picked up significantly, and it is just like a wave after the wave, till we crush the regime, and we will not stop.
Protesters here are urging the West to intervene.
Mark Carney, Trump, Europe, they must do something for us now.
And until that help comes, Iranian Canadians here say they will keep showing up and fighting for their loved ones back home.
We're doing what we can, and they're aware of that, and that will energize them that the support is here, and hopefully we're hoping that Trump will take action ASAP.
It doesn't matter to be Iranian or non-Iranian. We all are humans, and we need to support each other.
Lexi Benedict, Global News.
Prime Minister Mark Carney is in Qatar after striking a strategic trade partnership with China Friday that will allow Chinese EVs into Canada in exchange for lower canola duties. Canadian farmers call it a win, though there are fears cheap Chinese vehicles will flood the market, undermining Canada's auto industry. And despite U.S. President Donald Trump giving Carney the thumbs up, saying the deal is good for Canada, it's risky business to try to diversify away from our biggest trading partner. Our David Akin is in Doha. David?
Well, Neetu, Mark Carney has been the Prime Minister now for 314 days, and he has spent more than 10% of his time on the road as mostly Canada's salesperson-in-chief, selling the country as a safe, reliable investment partner.
Welcome.
His deal-making paid off in China, where he convinced Chinese President Xi Jinping to roll back punishing tariffs China had imposed on Canadian canola. And in exchange, Canada agreed to allow about 50,000 Chinese-made electric vehicles to be imported into Canada.
That's less than 3% of the Canadian auto sectors.
Here in Qatar, Carney will be meeting with investors who may be eyeing joint ventures in Canadian critical minerals or artificial intelligence.
What we're looking to achieve here is really a strategic partnership.
All well and good, say some, but any new deal, including that deal with China, must be viewed in context of upcoming negotiations to renew Canada's most important trade deal, the one with the United States and Mexico.
Every action we take is scrutinized carefully, and we have to make sure that we don't get in our own way for something that really matters a lot, and that's the review and renewal of the USMCA.
For Canada's business community, opening new markets in Asia, the Middle East, or Europe will never replace the value of the American export market. And until he lands a deal with the United States, Carney's opponents believe he may be politically vulnerable.
Prime Minister Carney was elected on his explicit promise that he's the kind of person that could get a deal to remove tariffs with the United States, get a deal with President Trump. He's completely failed on that.
The government argues it can do two things at once.
I think it is in Canada's best interest to really diversify, engage with partners in the Middle East, in Asia, and will continue.
Now, one other development today, U.S. President Donald Trump invited the Prime Minister to join Trump's Board of Peace. That is the multinational institution charged with overseeing the reconstruction of Gaza. And Prime Minister Carney has accepted the invitation. Neetu.
Okay, more to follow there. David Akin in Doha, Qatar. Thank you. Trump also says he will slap 10% tariffs starting next month against 8 EU countries opposing his ambitions to take over Greenland. Germany, the UK, France, and Denmark are among them. On social media, Trump said he will also boost duties to 25% on June 1st if a deal is not in place by then for the complete and total purchase of the Danish territory. He argued Greenland was essential to U.S. and global security. He also blamed escalating tensions on nations who recently deployed military personnel in response to his threats. With that, thousands marched through Greenland's capital, demanding Trump back off from the Arctic territory. Similar rallies also unfolded in Copenhagen, with thousands marching to the U.S. Embassy. A bipartisan delegation of U.S. lawmakers was also in Copenhagen, hoping to ease tensions. At least one Democratic senator among them says Greenland faces, quote, no pressing security threats, despite Trump's rhetoric. After 25 years of negotiations, the European Union has signed a massive trade deal with an alliance of South American countries known as Mercosur. It creates the largest free trade zone in the world with a market of 700 million people and 20% of global GDP. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen says the deal reflects a clear and deliberate choice of fair trade over tariffs. European farmers and environmentalists had opposed the deal over cheap South American imports and deforestation. In Minneapolis today, dueling rallies fueled heated clashes as tension builds following the killing of Renee Good by an ICE officer earlier this month. Right-wing protesters confronted anti-ICE demonstrators outside City Hall this afternoon. A U.S. judge is restricting crowd control tactics used by ICE. And as Candace Cole reports, the Justice Department is now investigating the mayor of Minneapolis as well as the state's governor.
We are ground zero for Trump's war in America.
After more than a week of civil unrest and violent clashes with immigration enforcement agents in Minneapolis following the shooting death of Renee Good by an ICE agent, a federal judge is now prohibiting ICE from retaliating against peaceful protesters. After many have been shot with tear gas, pepper sprayed, and physically assaulted.
They have taken people out of their cars to detain them on major streets, left the car running, not in park. Car rolls down the streets. You don't need to be a genius to figure out that that is not safe.
The immigration crackdown in Minneapolis now making life precarious for the immigrant communities and U.S. citizens alike.
We have seen consistent unconstitutional practice by ICE discriminating only on the basis of are you Latino, are you Somali, and then indiscriminate pickups thereafter.
We've received reports of federal law enforcement officers going door to door asking people where the Asian people live, right in our very own city. I myself have received advice to carry my passport with me.
And now the U.S. Department of Justice is reportedly launching a criminal investigation into Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey for allegedly impeding ICE from carrying out its federal immigration enforcement duties. Both Democratic leaders responding on social media, Walz calling the move authoritarian, saying the only person not being investigated is the ICE agent who fatally shot Renee Good, and Frey calling it an obvious attempt to intimidate him for standing up for Minneapolis. Governor Walz has also activated Minnesota's National Guard to support local law enforcement amid the ongoing protests. Candace Cole, Global News, Washington.
Ottawa unveiled the next steps in its national gun buyback program today. As of Monday, Canadians will have roughly 2 months to declare their interest in turning in outlawed firearms in order to receive compensation. But some gun owners and provinces are already trying to kibosh the scheme, arguing the buybacks won't make Canada safer at all. Dan Spector reports.
Gun owners wielding now banned firearms are being invited to raise their hands as of Monday if they want to turn them in for federal cash.
Every assault-style firearm out of our communities is a step forward for public safety.
2,500 makes and models of assault-style weapons have been declared illegal since 2020, and permit holders who are still in possession of any of those weapons at the end of October will be breaking the law. The feds will be reaching out to owners by mail or email. They can join the program until March 31st. So far, Quebec is the only province fully participating.
It was unacceptable to be forced, or that would be, put in place without us, so we've decided to negotiate.
The Sûreté du Québec will be gathering and destroying the assault weapons. In most other provinces, the RCMP will do the work even if premiers are not on board.
Why would we want to take on that whole headache?
Alberta and Saskatchewan have passed legislation barring the program from their jurisdictions.
We're hopeful that we can find compromises.
A pilot project in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia last year collected just 25 firearms from 16 people. The federal government has devoted $700 million to the program since its inception in 2020. They admit not everyone who applies will be paid.
If this is about public safety, why have they openly declared that compensation is not guaranteed?
While critics accuse the Carney government of targeting law-abiding gun owners, gun control advocates call the buyback program a major step forward.
I'm very, very happy, proud to be part of the government that does it.
Nathalie Provost was shot 4 times during the 1989 Polytechnique massacre in Montreal. She's proud that her home province is the first to sign on.
They are more progressive, I should say.
Victims of the 2018 Danforth shooting in Toronto and the 2017 Quebec City mosque shooting are also among those showing support for the program. Dan Spector, Global News, Montreal.
Ailing wait times and burnout at home. Coming up, why more Canadians are looking beyond our borders for health care. Canada's ailing healthcare system faces huge challenges such as lengthy wait times, staff shortages and burnout given the long hours many are required to work. Now a new report reveals a growing number of Canadians are traveling abroad to receive medical treatment. Catherine Ward puts it under the microscope.
Jessica Chalk's fertility journey has not been easy.
We had a pretty devastating miscarriage on an IVF transfer round that ended up working, and then we lost our twins at 10 weeks. And that miscarriage ended up just not going well. And then I had issues with my uterine lining.
In search of answers, she went to a clinic in New York City, content to pay out of pocket to speed up the process, instead of potentially waiting more than a year for different tests and procedures.
I leveraged and used US where I could to fast track an otherwise long wait, and in other parts to access treatment that just wasn't available for me at the time in Canada.
Firefighter Steve Romanowicz received a portion of his cancer treatment stateside. At the time, the CAR-T therapy was not available in Canada. It was an option that was financially possible given his insurance tied to dangers of his job.
A couple of months prior that they had told me to get my affairs in order. So in all likelihood, I would not be here today. WSIB recognized that the treatment was a good option for me.
A new report from the Fraser Institute says in 2025, more than 105,000 people traveled outside Canada for care, with Ontario, British Columbia, and Alberta having the highest numbers.
Canada has the longest waiting list for healthcare in the developed world, and we're the only country that has no private alternative to the universal scheme at home.
A hybrid system that includes both private and public options is something orthopedic surgeon Dr. Brian Day has long championed. More than 23,000 people died waiting for treatment in Canada over the span of 1 year, according to a recent report from the think tank Second Street.
Out of 10 countries developed countries with universal healthcare, we are at near the top in spending and near the bottom in performance. Most tellingly, it's at the bottom in access to care for low-income groups. So it's not doing what theory is supposed to have achieved.
An issue researchers say is becoming increasingly critical.
The Canadian healthcare system is failing Canadians on a daily basis, whether it's the 100,000 plus Canadians who left the country for treatment or the Canadians who are walking out of emergency rooms because they can't get the healthcare they need.
Catherine Ward, Global News, Toronto.
Leadership shakeup ahead. A political exit in Quebec sends ripple effects far beyond the province. The resignation of Quebec Premier François Legault this week has not only generated reaction in that province, but in Newfoundland and Labrador as well. Legault was one of the driving forces behind negotiations with the province to craft a new hydroelectric deal. Heidi Petracek explains why Legault's exit is raising questions about the fate of that agreement.
Beaucoup de Québécois souhaitent d'abord du changement.
François Legault didn't just upend Quebec's political landscape by resigning. He also triggered questions in Newfoundland and Labrador.
If there's going to be a deal between these two provinces anymore.
In late 2024, Legault and the then Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, Andrew Furey, signed a memorandum of understanding to craft a new hydroelectric deal meant to replace the 1969 Churchill Falls Agreement, one Newfoundlanders and Labradorians long maintained was grossly unfair.
Premier Legault did show us the money.
2 months later, Furey resigned. Then a provincial election ushered in a new Conservative government, and Premier Tony Wakeham hit the brakes. Legault's resignation brings uncertainty.
It's an MOU. It's not like this is a constitutional requirement. So it seems to me that this opens up various possibilities around what could happen.
On va trouver une entente gagnant-gagnant.
When Legault stepped down, he said he was confident a, quote, win-win deal could be reached soon. Newfoundland and Labrador's premier insists nothing will change. From my standpoint, wrote Tony Wakeham in a statement, it doesn't matter who leads the province of Quebec or who will be sitting across from me at the negotiating table.
The target was to have these final agreements done in April of 2026.
John Hogan had picked up where Fury left off. Now he's leader of the official opposition and says Wakeham's move to put the proposed deal through a review and his pledge to hold a referendum are taking up time, knowing the party leading Quebec's polls considers the deal, quote, humiliating.
With the Parti Québécois saying that, essentially they won't do a deal. I don't even know if they'll negotiate.
And it's not necessarily the factor that would drive the campaign. In fact, I would say not at all.
Quebec's election must be held by October 5th, leaving less than 8 months to finalize a deal many Newfoundlanders and Labradorians have wanted for more than 50 years. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
All eyes on the moon. Next, a major milestone in spaceflight and the Canadian at the center of it. NASA rolled out the red carpet for Artemis 2 today ahead of a historic lunar mission. The spacecraft is set to carry 4 astronauts, including Canadian Jeremy Hansen, around the moon for the first time in decades and could blast off as early as February 6th.
I think the moon is something I've sort of taken for granted. I've, looked at it my whole life, but then, you just kind of glance at it, glance away. But now I've been staring at it a lot more. And I think others are going to join us in staring at the moon a lot more as there are humans flying around the far side. And I think that's just good for humanity.
The mission could set a new record for the farthest distance humans have ever traveled from Earth. It's part of a larger push to return humans to the lunar surface. And that is Global National for this Saturday. I'm Neetu Garcha. Tonight's Your Canada is Saskatoon. We love seeing your Canada. Please email it in to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thanks so much for watching and hope to see you here again tomorrow. Have a great night.